Salute is a program for and about men and women who have served our country. Our program includes news about the laws that affect veterans, information on benefits and services, and news from veterans organizations. And now, our host, Bob Peters.
Hello, I'm Bob Peters, and welcome to Salute. My guest today is a good friend of mine, Bill Coberly. He's got a story to tell about the Seabees, and Bill has been very instrumental in the veterans community with the AMVETS, and also he's done some work for veterans through the Eagles. Right, Bill?
Yes, we have.
And would you give us a little history about when you were in the service, and then we can talk about what is the Seabees and how it got started?
Okay. Basically, I joined in 1954. I had three brothers that were all Army, and then I ended up going Navy. So
you had to take some.
I got some flack over
I
that.
got so.
But when I joined in, it was in the end of Korea, towards the tail end of Korea there. The unit that I joined was activated, and so they were looking for replacements. And I figured, well, we also had to draft at that time. And I thought, well, this dumb kid better get some smarts before he goes in. So I thought, well, I'll join the reserves, get at least a couple stripes on my arm, and at least know a little bit more about what was going on.
And where you wanted to go.
Yeah, and I was the last recruit taken directly into the Seabees. After that, I was only 17 at the time, still in high school, and we had to go to meetings one night a week to start with. But joining at that time, it meant an 8-year obligation. So my initial enlistment was for 8 years, from 1954 to 62.
All of it active?
All active reserve.
All active reserve, okay.
All active reserve. The fact that at that time it was like I said, Korea was cooling off, and they signed a truce right about that time. I think it was shortly after that when they had the final truce signed. I'm not sure about that date, but I think it was in 55. Might have been in 54 later that year. But after joining, we also had to go to boot camp. So, like I said, I was in high school, and the latter part of May and the first part of June, I was in Great Lakes, Illinois in boot camp. My class was graduating. In order to get my diploma, my brother Roy went to pick it up. He had to stand in for me. Roy at the time was, when he got out, he re-enlisted in the Army Reserve. Roy and myself are the only two that stayed for over 20. My brother John and my brother Jim, both in the Army, but they got out after their hitches were served. When I went to boot camp, I didn't have any work shoes issued to me for my uniform. I had my dress blues and my dress shoes, and I had dungarees. Well, when we went there, everybody wore dungarees while we was going through the training, and then, of course, the uniforms were for arrival and leave when we left, release. I learned a lot of things in boot camp. We had firefighting school, learned all about different fires and what you're supposed to use to put them out. In fact, we had to go right into a fire chamber and had an oil fire, and we had to put that oil fire out. Also learned what tear gas was all about, and gas masks and those kinds of things, as well as learning what the Navy life was about, and no shipyard or shipboard training at that point in time. But when I left, one of the other things that I learned while I was in there was marching.
Yeah.
We all have to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I said, I only had the low quarter shoes. So when I left there, we was always on a concrete grinder when we was doing our training, and that's all I had to wear. And so when I left, I was walking on bare pavement. Wore the sole of it, the leather soles right off the bottom. Wasn't fun.
Yeah. So you completed basic.
Yeah,
and
basic
then
training.
Basic training. And after basic training, is that when you took the career path to the Seabees, or did you know?
No, I was directly in the Seabees.
Okay, you were directly in it.
But I had to go to Navy recruit training.
Okay.
For whatever reason. The more additional training came later. But we were only known as construction forces at this time, which they didn't have any reserve battalions. That came a little later, back in, I think it was in the early 60s when they formed our battalions. And that became a whole new ball game for us. But up until that time, in order to make sure I had the right trainings, I had to go to various places like Parris Island. You recall back when the DI marched those recruits through the Tidal River, or Tidal Creeks that were down in Camp Parris Island.
Yeah, vaguely, yeah.
And 2 or 3 of them died.
Yes, unfortunately.
I was there right after that. And that base was a whole lot different, going through all these investigations, everything that was going on. But it was interesting. We got marching drills there and so forth too, and a lot of rifle range. Primarily that's what they was teaching us, how to shoot and so forth. Which after that one, I think we went to Lejeune, Camp Lejeune. Drove the DIs nuts because they couldn't get us to march to their cadence. You know how there's the way they call that.
Yep.
And one old chief one day, the guy says, "Why don't you guys shape up and march?" The old chief responded to him. He says, "Tell you what, you get the stuff out of your mouth there and talk English. We can march." So just for jokes, the guy did. He went, "Okay, you mean like this? Left, right, and he says, "Yeah." And just the minute he started doing that, you saw a whole new other side of the Seabees.
Yeah.
You know, the Seabees are a funny group.
Now the Seabees, they'd be like the Army Corps of Engineers in the same realm, right?
Right, Bob.
Now the question I have for you, and I know a lot of people want to know, why is it called Seabees?
Okay, that's a good question. I have a video of the 50th anniversary of the Seabees. Mm-hmm. And back in 1942, or 41 actually, after Pearl Harbor was bombed, all the construction people, they took them in as civilians, and because they needed construction people right now. And so a lot of these guys were older and so forth, and they were all civilians, but yet they were doing construction work in dangerous situations. Admiral Ben Morrell recognized this fact because they always had to have, mostly the Marines were with us, and they had to do the fighting, and our guys had to more or less stop and dodge bullets, and et cetera, whatever. So what Ben Morrell did, he became known as the father of the Seabees because he went through Congress to get this recognized so that the construction forces could get military training. As a civilian, we weren't allowed to, or they weren't allowed to carry arms or do any fighting back because they were supposed to be non-combatants. However, that didn't work. I mean, those guys didn't recognize that.
Yeah, those
The
shoot
bullet
at you.
doesn't have any means of identifying the good and the bad. So that basically is how he got the approvals for the military training aspects. And one of the things he did, one of a young architect that was in the engineering command, he'd been asked, I should say Admiral Morrell, because he is a fantastic guy, or he was, I should say. But he asked this young engineer, architectural engineer, if he could come up with a caption, a logo, if you will, a cartoon type thing, because to depict Seabees. Mm-hmm. And that became our brand, and so he did, and he started drawing, and he first came up with a beaver. Well, when he got that drawing done, his wife looked at it and said, I don't think that's going to work. He said, well, why? He says, they're industrious and they're very resourceful. They have initiative and they go out and get the job done. She said, yeah, but they're not very brave. When something happens, they take off and go. You go hide.
Yeah.
And that's not Seabees.
No.
I don't think you want that. So, and he started doodling, and he got himself a bee, and those are angry when stirred up, and they don't go running, they go attacking.
Oh, yeah. That's for sure.
So, and then he started to try to come up with some ways of recognizing the bee in the name. And he says, well, they go by sea. They do a lot of stuff, overseas, and they go by boat. So he wrote down sea, and he already had the bee, so there it was, Seabee. Construction Battalion. He didn't make the connection at first, but C of construction and the B of battalion came out to be Seabees.
Yeah,
Thanks for asking that, Bob.
Well, we want our people watching to know the history of things that are going on, you know?
Yeah, that was
good. And speaking of which, you have some photos there.
Yeah, this, in my later years here, one of the times, I was in 54 when I went in 1957, one of the places we got assigned to is Gitmo. Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And so this was the group that we went to Cuba on, and when we was down there, we was doing base construction. Most of the guys got assigned to Cubic Point, I think it's called, which was the Marine Air Base side of the base down there. And what they were doing was pouring concrete for runways. And I was over on Main side and back up in the hills, and one of the things that we had, or that I had to do, was paint a navigational tower. So one day we went out to leave to go find that navigational tower. We had a warrant officer with us that liked to take charge of things, and said he knew right where we was going. So the driver, his name was Mac, he said Mac knew right where it was at, but this warrant officer says, oh, you got to go down here and turn this way. Evidently he had seen a map or something of where he's supposed to go. And so we spent a whole day looking for that navigational tower. And got back, and because Max says, now do you want to go to the navigational tower? Well, yeah. Anyway, so next morning he took us to the navigational tower. When we got up, it was on top of a 550-foot cliff, because when you get up there, it doesn't look like much, But the tower itself is 55 feet high, and it's sitting on the edge of a 500-foot cliff, right down to the ocean. So as you would probably understand, that when you get up there in the air, the wind is coming up, and it's really roaring by the time it goes over the top of that thing. So one of the guys was a second class petty officer, and, oh, that don't look like much. He says, I'll go up there, and he started going up right away, and he got off the ground and that wind hit him, and he froze in the second tier of the tower. And so when he got back, guys had to help him get down, in fact, but when he got back down, I said, let me have that brush, I'll go paint that thing. And I went right up to the top, and so did one of the first class with us that from my home unit. And so we get up there and started painting, and his name was Ralph Laney, and we was talking back and forth, and I'm painting, and he's painting, and I said something to him, and he looked around, and he says, what was that? I didn't hear you. And here Ralph has got white paint all over him. He was on the leeward side. Oh. And so, anyway, just another little funny. And then when we got back down, after we got the tower painted, and painted our way down, Mac, I saw him when he left, but he left, and whether you're supposed to or not, which is not supposed to do things like that. But anyway, when we got back down after this hot day of painting this tower, Mac had a case of Hatui beer.
Yeah, I knew that was going to come.
Yeah, good cold Hatui beer. And I don't know if you ever aware or heard of Hatui beer.
No, I haven't.
It's a Cuban beer, and the alcohol content in that thing is anything up to 18%.
Wow.
But it was very smooth.
Yeah.
A very good beer.
It packed a kick.
I'm sure, young guy, I didn't drink beer at that time. Except one. That I had to try that. But that was pretty much the trip. Oh no, there's another thing. Fidel Castro, the famous Fidel. That was in '57. He was in the mountains at this time. I think he went down there in '55, and a whole bunch of guys got shot up. Anyway, they went back. He went down there in '55, and he ended up in the mountains. So when we was there in '57, we did get to go on Liberty to the interior, but we didn't go real far. We went to a place called Kavanooch, which was the first little burg that was off base and a ways in the interior. One of the instructions we had was don't go anywhere alone, and be very conscious of what's going on around you. And so the taxis, we hired a taxi, and I think there was about 5 of us in that taxi. And they was afraid that the bandits, as Fidel's group was called, would come down and cause some problems with us. But nothing took place except this taxi driver just about killed us. He going, it's wide open in them old back roads and so forth.
Probably driving a cab in New York now,
Yeah.
They drive like that in New York.
Oh, I imagine he probably got.
So we got another picture here. What is it? This is you as a young fella here, right?
Yeah, a little bit older, but young. This is one of the trips that we took. We got sent to Iceland on this one.
Yeah, you were the guy in the middle row. In the middle on the very bottom row.
Right, sitting on the floor.
Sitting on the floor.
So I didn't fall. I happened to be AOIC of this detachment, what we called our Seabees teams. We were sent up there.
You guys go as a group,
Normally, at this particular time, that was back after we formed the battalions. Like I said, they was formed in like '60. This didn't happen until '73, and prior to that we formed into a battalion, and then as a battalion, one of the earliest things I remember is in '66 we went to Goshen, Virginia, and was working on constructing a Boy Scout camp. Some of the things that we did there, we weren't supposed to leave any telltale marks of our battalion there. Well, one of the things we had to do, one of our guys, was to build fireplaces. So we're had to go out into the countryside, the mountains there, and quarry the rock. We had to bring our rock back, and then we had some great stone layers. Lloyd Seal from Cincinnati. If you've ever been in Cincinnati, downtown Cincinnati, a lot of the square and so forth, it shows he did a lot of work there. He was a real artist at it. And so he took this rock that we quarried off the sides of the hills and the mountains down there and put that into this big fireplace. Well, instead of putting a name in there or being able to have it show up, what we did was go to the steel workers, iron workers there, and they formed a 2-0 out of rebar that was about an inch thick in depth, and formed that. And so Lloyd put that right up in the middle of the chimney when it was going up. It was all up on the outside, and it didn't show up until after we left, and the mortar had dried out and cured, you know. And then we got a few
You didn't get an attaboy for it, right?
Well, we had attaboys beforehand when we did the job. But getting back to Iceland there, that crew, we went to Iceland. The Commodore up at Keflavik, Iceland, on the naval base up there, sent his airplane down to us, and we went up, flew up in his airplane. On the way up there, this volcano on Hemi Island, and I can't pronounce the name of the volcano, but there was 2 of them there. And one of the things that we were going to do as this thing happened, and while we was on our way there, was to try to divert the flow of lava. And here this is showing it going into the sea, but in order to do that, we were going to, they were going to send 6-inch pumps up there, and then we was going to go out and try to cool the lava to form a berm and direct the flow away from the town. But unfortunately, the pumps didn't get there, and the volcano wasn't waiting. So he covered the town in ash and lost quite a bit of the town there. So instead of doing that problem, or that project, we went ahead and did the things that we were going there in the first place, which was to refurbish some old barracks there at Public Works and turn them into offices and some new sleeping quarters. But this is the start of what we was doing there. And they progressed all the way through. We had various trades with us: carpenters, electricians, plumbers, iron workers. So we was doing a whole lot of different things.
Yeah.
And here's
jack of all trades.
that one there. We're building the walls and so forth. And here's another one showing a little bit more work done on it. And then we have some later on when those were all finished, and guys were right down to the mopping the floor and cleaning that up, giving them a finished room when they're done. And here's a couple other guys that were handling a jackhammer that they had to pile in they had to break holes in the concrete floors in order to go in there and put the plumbing in. And in that particular case, I believe they was trying to get ready for setting a new stool for a bathroom for these facilities. And here we've got one showing where the guy is working on the stool. I think he was taking the stool out at this particular time. And if you notice, all the rest of the guys are in uniform, where this guy here, good old Joe Ryan, he's a plumber. And He is a riot, I'll tell you. And he brought them overhauls with him clear from Cincinnati. He also was from Cincinnati. And he got some flack about it, about wearing it, and then he got special permission to be able to do that.
Oh, I see. Save on his uniform.
Yeah.
Save wear and tear. Yeah, that's good. So you went to several different places. You were saying you were in Gitmo, you were in Alaska. Where?
No, I didn't go to Alaska. I went to Iceland.
Oh, Iceland.
Iceland. Yeah, I got to Alaska later, but that was civilian life.
I think I knew somewhere. Oh, in civilian life, yeah. So any other, ports, places you've been there?
Well, let's see. I told you I was Paris Island and Camp Lejeune, and to Little Creek, Virginia for amphib training. The early years, most of the time was spent in Davisville, Rhode Island, which was the home port of the East Coast Seabees, construction forces, and Seabees at that time too. And then later, after we formed our battalions, we got shifted to Gulfport, Mississippi, and that became the home port of the Seabees. No longer was Davisville the place that we had to go.
Yeah. Bill, I understand you have something here that has some significance for you. Looks pretty interesting. You want to tell me about it a little bit?
This was awarded by the base commander of Public Works there to us upon our completion of the work we did for him at Public Works, Keflavik Naval Air Station there.
So it's presented on the 24th day of March, 1973. So you've had that for quite a while, huh? Nice.
That's like 37 years.
Nice memory. Yeah, that's great, Bill. U.S. Air Force, USN, USMC, Volcano, Fish Rack, everything's there.
Yeah, the volcano, that we showed the pictures of early. That's what it's depicting.
Yeah.
Little things about everything that we did. There's more to that story because Keflavik Naval Air Station is where we were at. Reykjavik, the capital, we went there on our Liberty, and that's another whole story in itself.
Well, Bill, we're running out of time, I'm afraid.
Really?
Yeah, and it's been very interesting. And the Seabees have a reunion every year, right?
Yes.
And they're still going strong, right?
Seabees are still going strong.
And that's great, and I appreciate, and I know America appreciates everything you did. And I wish we had more time, but sorry. But anyway, on behalf of everybody here at Lakefront and Bill, who's a veteran, and to all you veterans out there and active military and your families, we salute you, and we'll see you again.
Let us know what you want us to present on our program. Just email lakefronttv@earthlink.net and type salute in the subject line.